Gilles is like a jack of all trades. He does it all. So he does the litigation work. He does legislative work. He also does educational work. He represents clients. He'll advise clients, point clients in the right direction if it's not a service that we can offer here. So he's pretty much doing it all across the board.
His efforts are absolutely relentless, and his brief writing, his oral advocacy are some of the best I've seen in my 45 years of lawyering.
He's always trying to make sure that the environment, the people around him are feeling safe, welcome, heard. He's fun to be around. Yeah, he's just, when you always see Gilles, you always see a smile on his face, and that's Gilles.
You know, for me personally, I took this job because I wanted to be able to have a positive influence in the community in which I lived. And this is really an amazing state, a small state where you can have an outsized impact working for any type of public interest organization. And so I loved the idea of living in this state and working for an organization that has really a broad reach, works on multiple issues, and tries to help make New Hampshire a better place, particularly for folks from historically marginalized communities and identities. And it's the best decision I've ever made, taking this job, and can't imagine ever leaving, to be honest.
Our civil liberties are guaranteed in the Bill of Rights, particularly in the First Amendment: free speech, association, petition the government for a redress of grievances, and free press, of course. And in order to have meaningful free speech, we need information in order to formulate our opinions. So the more information the public has about how the government is operating, the more intelligent will be our choices come time to cast a ballot, for example, or to speak out against what we believe to be governmental either abuse or misconduct or a great job.
He wants transparency, he wants accountability, and he wants the community to be able to engage in conversations. So he's pursued a lot of things in those areas.
First Amendment, free speech, government accountability is really the core, one of the core areas that we prioritize here in New Hampshire, and that our organization has prioritized since its inception. The ability to not only speak freely about issues of the day, particularly political issues, other contemporary issues, but the ability to do so in an informed way, which means not only that you have the ability to speak, but you have the ability to learn what the government is doing, learn what the government is up to, so you can engage in speech to praise the government, to criticize the government, to hold the government accountable. And that's always been core to our mission, and since I've been in this role for the past 9 years, has been one of my chief priorities, and among the chief priorities of every aspect of our office, including our other lawyers and our policy team. So the cases that we try to bring, if we ultimately obtain a favorable result, the hope is that that result will have an impact on so many other individuals in the state who are not necessarily a part of the lawsuit. And that really is one of the chief kind of traits of the cases that we bring, and is reflected in, I think, all of our First Amendment cases and all of our public records cases. When we bring a lawsuit trying to make sure that a police department produces a disciplinary report of an officer who was terminated, the benefit of that particular case is not only to obtain those records in that case, to obtain those records for the public or the press or for our own organization, but it's to make sure that the other 200 police departments in New Hampshire, when a similar request is made by a citizen who doesn't have our resources, that department will produce that information.
Thanks to lawyers like Gilles Bissonnette and judges who have transformed the law over the years, we have a much better system in New Hampshire today in terms of finding out about governmental activity than we have had, again, in the past 45 years that I've been involved with the law.
Probably the ballot selfie case, which tends to get talked a lot about, which was, again, kind of one of our core First Amendment cases, which dealt with the ability of an individual who goes in the polling place and is excited about voting. Particularly young people, they'll go in, it's their first time voting, and they want to snap a photo of their ballot, and they want to tell the world, I did this, I voted. It's very powerful. A picture speaks 1,000 words. We had a law in the books at the time that said you can't publish that photo. And even where that photo is no evidence to criminal activity, right? And, we filed a lawsuit, and it was among the first in the country challenging those types of laws, and were successful. And that case, we prevailed at the First Circuit. The Supreme Court denied review, and it's been nice to kind of to see that in the entire First Circuit, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine, that people have that right because of a case we brought. And I think that was probably the most high-profile kind of core First Amendment free speech case that I did early in my career, and we've tried to kind of leverage that, right, to make sure that individuals have the First Amendment right to record law enforcement, which is critical to hold law enforcement accountable, and also even to vindicate law enforcement with respect to how they responded to particular situations. Making sure that people have the right in public meetings to criticize local officials without fear of being arrested. So we've done all those cases because, again, the ability to speak truth to power, to criticize or praise the government is so critical to our First Amendment protections. And we've had to do cases on all those areas.
What is important about the change in the law that Attorney Bissonnette's efforts have created is that now the courts are directed by the Supreme Court to conduct what's called a balancing test. The public's interest in disclosure versus the privacy interests in the governmental agency or actor.
For 27 years, from 1993 to 2020, we had no ability to get access to disciplinary records of government employees in this state. Zero. And I think one of the things that I'm really the most excited about, having been a part of a big team in accomplishing this goal, was overturning that 27-year period, which what I kind of call the dark ages of New Hampshire's public records law period, where we just couldn't learn if a police officer was disciplined. We couldn't learn why, which is really critical. What if that police officer's on the force? And the public may have concerns about that. There was no ability to hold, say, a police department accountable in that context. But this applies far beyond just police. I think we tend to think about it a lot in the context of police. But let's say, for example, there's an investigation about how a school district responded to allegations of sexual misconduct by a former teacher. And a report's done, compiling, did the district respond appropriately or not? For 27 years, New Hampshire couldn't get access to that type of information. So I think we're all really, really proud that we were able to change the law and shed light on just what the government is up to. And I would also note that, again, it was a complete collaborative team effort. Not only were there other members of our staff, Henry Klomatowicz, and others involved, but these were all done in collaboration with media outlets, which I'm really proud of. The Union Leader, the Concord Monitor, Seacoast News, everyone was involved, recognized the importance of it, and they helped lead the way to make New Hampshire, I think, a freer state.
Mrs. Loeb founded her school here in Manchester because she felt that education about civics and our Bill of Rights, particularly the First Amendment, just wasn't being taught sufficiently, particularly in high schools. But to me, it's from kindergarten on, kids should be schooled and educated on our democratic republic, how it works and why it works. So Gilles has that passion, I know that much. But, I don't know if he comes from a family of lawyers or not, but it wouldn't surprise me because he's so adept at learning the law, knowing the law, writing the law, and articulating the law. It's a rare combination.
Protecting the civil liberties of the people that he's around, specifically when it comes to the First Amendment issues, that's one of the hills that Gilles will die on defending, and I think that is very admirable of him, especially in this day and age when it seems that having conversations has become so hard that you can't do that. So I'm honored to work around someone that's looking to make sure that we can continue these conversations.
When I first took this job in 2013, there was a Banned Book Week. We had Banned Book Week in New Hampshire and nationally, and we would give presentations and talk about banned books. But it always seemed a little bit, in my view, and I was wrong at the time, a little bit kind of disconnected from like kind of the core issues that we were maybe fighting on of the day. But a helpful reminder that these issues have continued to pop up in the United States. Well, now in 2022, we were dealing with banned books, you know, in one of the most kind of overt ways that I've seen in my tenure here at the ACLU. And it's just a reminder that no, these fights are always going to be ongoing. And there'll always be a role for our organization, not only to litigate these matters in court and to advocate at the legislature, but to just educate the public as to what their rights are. And I think that, again, is one of the core values of our organization. And we'll continue to do it, I know, for as long as I'm here and as long as we exist.